I was about to destroy my life for a man who'd never once looked me in the eye. My hand trembled as I folded the cocktail napkin into a tight square, the blue ink from the bar pen already seeping through the cheap paper. Across the gleaming bar top, Nick, the hammer Giordano, sat in his usual corner booth, the one with the sight lines to both exits, completely unaware that the blonde checking her phone beside him had just put a price on his head. The napkin felt radioactive as I set it beside his whiskey glass. Macallan 25, always 2 fingers, always neat. From where I stood it looked like nothing. A forgotten piece of trash. If he actually bothered to read it, it would either save his life or end mine. Maybe both. "Can I get you anything else, Mr. Giordano?" I asked, my voice somehow steady even though my pulse was trying to claw its way out of my throat. His mistress, Sienna, laughed at something on her screen, the sound too bright, too practiced against the low thrum of jazz and expensive conversations. She didn't even glance up. Behind them, the city sprawled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Onyx Lounge, Manhattan at 11:47 p.m., a glittering reminder of all the lives I'd never live. Nick's eyes stayed on the drink menu, one tattooed hand resting on the table. The ink crawled up from his collar, dark patterns that disappeared beneath his perfectly tailored gray suit. "We're fine," he said, dismissing me like he dismissed everyone. But I didn't move. I couldn't. Not until he saw it. 18 minutes earlier, I'd been in the bathroom, leaning against the marble counter on my 10-minute break, scrolling mindlessly through my phone when the door swung open. Sienna's heels clicked across the tile, red-soled Louboutins that cost more than 3 months of my rent. Her perfume hit me first. Jasmine and something darker, expensive enough to make my eyes water. The bathroom at the Onyx was all hard surfaces. Marble, chrome, glass. Nothing soft enough to absorb sound. Every word echoed. I said, "He's at the corner booth." Her voice drifted over the partition, low but sharp, like she was trying to whisper and failing. "By the windows." I froze, my thumb hovering over my screen. 2 at the back exit, 1 on the rooftop across the street. She paused and I could hear someone talking on the other end. Then, "He's wearing the gray suit. You'll have a clean shot when he stands to leave." The air left my lungs. Water ran. She was fixing her makeup, completely casual, like she hadn't just ordered a hit on the most dangerous man in Manhattan. When she spoke again, her voice dropped into something else. Serbian, maybe Russian, fast and fluid, wrapping the rest of the details in a language I couldn't decode. I held my breath, pressing myself against the stall door, praying she wouldn't look down and see my scuffed work shoes beneath the partition. The faucet shut off. Her heels clicked toward the door. It swung closed. I waited 30 seconds before I moved, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack a rib. By the time I stepped back onto the floor, balancing a tray of dirty glasses, it wasn't hard to spot them. The man at the bar nursing the same vodka tonic for 40 minutes, eyes tracking every movement near Nick's table. The couple near the kitchen exit who hadn't touched their food, too focused on their sight lines. And the glint. That tiny reflection in the window from the building across the street. 15th floor, corner window. Exactly where she'd said. I didn't think. I just grabbed a pen and scribbled 8 words that would either save him or bury me. "Your mistress sold you out." They're in position. Now I stood frozen beside his table, watching as Nick finally, glanced down at the napkin. He unfolded it with 2 fingers, casual, like servers passed him secret notes every night. His eyes scanned the words. For a moment nothing changed. Then his jaw tightened. "Just barely. Just enough. Is everything all right, baby?" Sienna purred, leaning into him, her hand possessive on his arm. Nick's gaze lifted and locked onto mine. His eyes were darker than they looked from behind the bar, almost black, and there was something calculating in them that made my stomach drop. He knew. He knew I knew. "We'll take the check," he said smoothly, never breaking eye contact with me. That was when I saw it again. The glint in the window behind him, a tiny flash of light adjusting position. The sniper was lining up his shot. "Get down." I didn't remember dropping the tray. Didn't remember lunging forward. I just remember the impact, my shoulder slamming into Nick's chest hard enough to knock him sideways, and the deafening crack of glass exploding inward. The bullet passed through the space where his head had been half a second before. Then everything was screaming. Chaos. Chairs scraping, people diving for cover, Sienna's shriek cutting through it all. A weight slammed me down and suddenly I was pinned to the floor, Nick's body covering mine, one hand braced beside my head, the other wrapped around my wrist so tight I could feel my pulse trapped against his fingers. "Don't move," he ordered, his voice cold and controlled in a way that made ice spread through my veins. Gunfire erupted near the kitchen. Shouts. The heavy thud of bodies hitting marble. "The sniper," I started. "Already handled." His grip shifted, his thumb pressing against the frantic hammer of my pulse. His eyes searched my face and I realized with sinking dread that I'd just made myself the most interesting person in his world. "Who are you?" I'm just the bartender." "Not anymore." His security closed in like a wall of suits and earpieces, and I knew with absolute certainty, that my life as I'd known it was over. The bathroom had been empty when I'd pushed through the door 18 minutes ago, grateful for 10 minutes off my aching feet. The Onyx Lounge didn't believe in mercy. 6-hour shifts in heels that pinched, smiling at men who never looked past the uniform, carrying trays that grew heavier with every hour. My phone was already in my hand when Sienna's Louboutins clicked across the marble. I should have announced myself. Coughed. Made some noise to let her know someone else was there. But I was tired and invisible was my default setting, so I stayed quiet in the stall, scrolling through messages from Mira about her piano practice. Then Sienna started talking. I said he's at the corner booth. By the windows. Her voice bounced off the hard surfaces, sharp despite the attempted whisper. I stopped scrolling. Something in her tone made the hair on my arms stand up. 2 at the back exit, 1 on the rooftop across the street. My breath caught. He's wearing the gray suit. You'll have a clean shot when he stands to leave. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Clean shot. The words echoed in my skull, louder than her voice. I pressed myself against the stall door, making myself smaller, praying my breathing wouldn't give me away. The faucet turned on. Through the crack in the door I could see her reapplying lipstick in the mirror, perfectly calm. Then she switched languages, something Eastern European, harsh consonants and fluid vowels, and whatever instructions she gave next were lost to me. When she finally left, I counted to 30 before I moved. My legs were shaking. I knew exactly who wore gray suits at corner booths. Nick Giordano owned that table like he owned half of Manhattan's underworld. I'd served him twice a week for 8 months and he'd never once made eye contact with me. I was furniture to him. Background noise. But I'd also watched him tip the kitchen staff extra during the holidays. Seen him sit through a 2-hour dinner with his elderly mother, patient and attentive. He wasn't just the hammer. He was someone's son. Someone who didn't deserve to have his head blown off while drinking 30-year-old scotch. Back on the floor I spotted them immediately. The man at the bar who'd been there too long, eyes constantly tracking movement. The couple by the kitchen who'd ordered appetizers 40 minutes ago and hadn't taken a single bite. And when I glanced toward the windows I saw it, a tiny glint of light from the building across the street. 15th floor. Corner window. Just like she'd said. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I grabbed a pen from my apron, scribbled the warning on a cocktail napkin, folded it tight. The ink bled through. Evidence of my stupidity. I approached Nick's table with my heart in my throat. Set the napkin beside his crystal tumbler like it was nothing. Like I wasn't signing my own death warrant. "Can I get you anything else, Mr. Giordano?" Sienna laughed at her phone, oblivious. Nick waved me off without looking up. I stood there, paralyzed, until he finally reached for the napkin. Unfolded it. His eyes scanned the words and I watched his entire body language shift. Not panic, calculation. His jaw tightened, shoulders tensed beneath the expensive suit. Then his gaze found mine and it was like being pinned under a spotlight. That was when I saw the glint again. The reflection in the window shifting, adjusting. Lining up. Get down. I didn't think. I lunged, slamming into Nick's shoulder just as the world exploded. Glass shattered inward in a spray of diamonds. The crack of the gunshot was so loud it felt like it split my skull open. Nick moved faster than I thought possible, yanking Sienna down with one arm while his other hand caught my wrist, pulling me under the table with them. His security materialized from nowhere, suits and earpieces transforming into a wall of controlled violence. More gunfire. Not from outside this time. Short, controlled bursts near the kitchen and the bar. Nick's men moving with military precision. I hit the floor hard, my cheek pressing against expensive carpet that smelled like wine and fear. Someone was screaming. Dishes crashed. Chairs scraped as patrons scrambled for exits. Then Nick was on top of me, his weight deliberate, protective, one hand braced by my head while the other kept my wrist locked in his grip like he was afraid I'd disappear. Don't move, he ordered, his voice ice cold despite the chaos erupting around us. Another shot rang out. A heavy body hit the floor somewhere near the bar. The man who'd been watching too long, now face down with blood pooling beneath him. The sniper, I gasped. Already handled. Nick's eyes bored into mine, dark and calculating. His thumb pressed against my racing pulse. Who sent you? No one. I heard her. Russo. One of his security guards appeared, breathing hard. We need to move. Now. But Nick didn't move. He stayed there, studying my face like he was reading a contract, looking for the fine print that would explain why a bartender just saved his life. You just made a very dangerous choice, he said quietly. I was starting to realize that. The gunfire stopped as abruptly as it started. In the ringing silence that followed, I could hear my own ragged breathing, the distant wail of sirens, someone sobbing near the entrance. Nick's weight lifted off me and suddenly I could breathe again, though the air tasted like gunpowder and expensive perfume. Clear, one of his men called from the kitchen. Bars secure, another confirmed. 2 down, non-lethal. One fled through the service entrance. Nick hauled me to my feet with one hand, his grip on my wrist never loosening. My legs wobbled. The world tilted slightly like I was watching everything through water. Through the shattered window I could see people on the street below, pointing up at the building, phones out, recording. Look at me. Nick's voice cut through the fog. When I didn't respond fast enough, his free hand caught my chin, forcing my gaze to his. Focus. Who told you about the hit? No one told me. I heard. My voice cracked. I swallowed hard and tried again. I heard her. In the bathroom. She was on the phone. His eyes flicked to Sienna, who was pressed against the booth, mascara streaked down her face, shaking. She looked genuinely terrified, which was almost impressive considering she'd orchestrated the whole thing. Her, I confirmed, my voice steadier now. She said 2 at the back exit, 1 on the roof across the street. Said you'd have a clean shot when he stood up. Something deadly flickered across Nick's face. He released my chin but kept hold of my wrist as he turned to his head of security. Marco. Take Sienna to the car. Lock her in. I'll deal with her later. Nick baby, I don't know what she's talking about, Sienna started, her voice climbing into hysteria. Now, Nick said quietly, and Marco moved forward, gripping Sienna's arm with the same efficiency he'd probably used to disarm the shooters. She stumbled as he pulled her toward the service exit, still protesting her innocence. The sirens were getting louder. 3 blocks away, maybe 4. Boss, we need to go, Marco called over his shoulder. I know. But Nick was still looking at me, his expression unreadable. What's your full name? Elena. Elena Rivas. Elena. He said it like he was filing it away for later. How much of the conversation did you hear? Most of it. The positioning, the timing. She switched to another language at the end. Serbian maybe? I don't know. I couldn't understand that part. His jaw clenched. Serbian Syndicate. Dragan Kovac. He said the name like it tasted bitter. That makes sense. Too much sense. I should give a statement, I said, even as some instinct deep in my gut screamed that staying here was the worst possible decision. The police will want to know. The police will want to know how a bartender knew there was a sniper before he fired his first shot. Nick stepped closer and I became acutely aware of how much space he took up, how controlled his movements were despite the chaos around us. They'll want to know if you were part of it. If he set me up. If this was a planned attack and you're the inside contact. My stomach dropped. But I saved you. Or you got cold feet at the last second. Or this was a setup to earn my trust. His eyes never left mine. I don't think that's true, but they will. And while they're asking you questions for the next 8 hours, the Serbian Syndicate will be asking themselves why their hit failed. The implication hit me like cold water. They'll think I'm a witness. You are a witness. You're the witness. The only person besides Sienna who can connect them to tonight. His grip on my wrist tightened slightly. Which means they'll come for you. Not tonight, probably not tomorrow, but soon. They'll eliminate the liability. That's how this works. 2 blocks. The sirens were 2 blocks away now. Marco, Nick called, never breaking eye contact with me. Bring the car around. Back in trance. I can't just leave, I protested weakly. I work here. I have a life. I have. You had a life. He started pulling me toward the service corridor, his movements decisive. The second you handed me that note, you stepped into something you don't understand. You saved my life, Elena, which means I owe you. And the way I'm going to repay that debt is by keeping you alive. You can't just. I can. I am. We were moving through the kitchen now, past overturned pots and staff huddled in corners, their faces pale with shock. You're coming with me. Right now. No arguments. I need my things. My phone. Leave it. They can track phones. We burst through the service exit into the alley. A black Mercedes was already waiting, engine running, Marco at the wheel. Nick opened the back door. Get in. I hesitated, every instinct warring with itself. Behind us I could hear the police radios, boots pounding up the front stairs. Nick's voice dropped lower, almost gentle. They will kill you, Elena. The Serbians don't leave loose ends. And I can't protect you if you're in a police station answering questions for the next 6 hours. I looked at his face. The hard lines, the cold calculation, the absolute certainty in his eyes, and realized he wasn't lying. This wasn't a threat or manipulation. It was a simple fact. I got in the car. The car pulled away from the alley just as the first police cruiser screeched to a stop in front of the Onyx Lounge. Through the tinted rear window, I watched red and blue lights paint the building's facade, watched officers pour through the entrance I'd walked through 6 hours ago in my cheap work heels, back when my biggest concern was making rent. That life felt like it belonged to someone else now. Where are we going? I asked, my voice sounding small in the leather interior. Somewhere safe. Nick was typing on his phone, his thumbs moving with the same controlled efficiency as everything else he did. Marco, take the bridge. Avoid Midtown. Copy that, boss. Safe. The word rattled around in my head, losing meaning with each repetition. Nothing about this felt safe. I was in a car with a man I'd served drinks to for 8 months but didn't actually know, running from police and Serbian hitmen, my entire existence reduced to the clothes on my back and the panic climbing up my throat. I need to make a call, I said suddenly, reality crashing down. I need to, my sister. Mira. She's home alone. Nick's typing stopped. His eyes cut to mine, sharp and assessing. How old? 16. She's at our apartment in Brooklyn. She'll be worried. If I don't check in, my voice cracked. Please. I just need 2 minutes to tell her I'm okay. Where exactly in Brooklyn? I hesitated, some instinct warning me not to give him that information. But what choice did I have? Prospect Heights. Near the park. He was already dialing. Victor. I need you to dispatch a team to Prospect Heights. He rattled off my address before I could even tell him, and the fact that he knew it, had known it, sent ice through my veins. 16-year-old girl. Name's Mira Rivas. Pick her up. Clean extraction, no scene. Bring her to the estate. Wait, what? I lunged forward, but Nick caught my wrist. It was becoming a pattern. You can't just take my sister. I'm not taking her. I'm protecting her. His voice was infuriatingly calm. The people who tried to kill me tonight know your face now, Elena. It took me 10 seconds to pull your employee file. How long do you think it'll take them? And when they find your address, what do you think they'll do when they find a teenage girl home alone? The air left my lungs. Mira. Talented, brilliant Mira with her Juilliard scholarship and her entire future mapped out. Mira, who I'd raised alone since Mom died, who practiced piano until her fingers ached, who deserved so much better than this. She'll be scared, I whispered. She won't understand. Then you'll explain it to her. When she arrives. Safely. He released my wrist and went back to his phone. Victor, I need the asset list for the Kovac organization. Every known address, every business front. I want locations on Dragan and his top 5 by morning. Asset list. Business fronts. The language of violence wrapped in corporate efficiency. We crossed the bridge into Manhattan, the city lights blurring past the windows. Marco took a series of turns through Tribeca, finally pulling up to a building that looked like it belonged in a magazine spread, all glass and steel with security cameras that tracked our approach. This is home, Nick said, already opening his door. For now anyway. The garage entrance required 3 separate security checks. Biometric scanner. Keycard. Facial recognition. Marco navigated them all without comment, like this was routine. We descended into an underground parking structure that held more luxury vehicles than most dealerships. Nick's phone buzzed as we stepped into a private elevator. Victor's team is at your apartment. Your sister is secure. Is she okay? Can I talk to her? When we get upstairs. Right now she's probably confused and angry, and having that conversation in an elevator isn't ideal. The doors opened directly into a penthouse that could have housed 20 people comfortably. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson, the city sprawling beneath us like we owned it. Maybe he did. Make yourself comfortable, Nick said, shrugging off his jacket. The gray suit that had almost gotten him killed tonight. There was broken glass in his hair. There are guest rooms on the 2nd floor. Victor's team will have Mira here within the hour. I stood frozen in the entrance, taking in the space. The art on the walls. The furniture that probably cost more than I'd made in the last year. The panic room door I could see down the hallway, reinforced steel disguised as mahogany. This isn't protection, I said quietly. This is a cage. Nick turned to face me fully, and for the first time since the shooting, something almost like sympathy flickered across his face. Yes, he agreed. But it's a cage where you and your sister get to wake up tomorrow morning. I'll take that trade. The question is, will you? Behind me I heard the elevator descending, going back down to collect Mira. My baby sister being pulled into this world because I couldn't keep my mouth shut when I should have stayed invisible. I thought about the sniper's glint in the window. The blood on the marble floor. The cold calculation in Sienna's voice as she ordered a hit on the man she shared a bed with. I don't have a choice, I said. No, Nick agreed, pouring himself a whiskey from the bar. You really don't. I'd been sitting on the leather sofa for 20 minutes, watching Nick work his phone like a weapon, when Marco entered through the elevator with a tablet in hand. His expression was grim. We got confirmation, Marco said, handing over the device. Serbian Syndicate. Dragan Kovac authorized the hit personally. We intercepted communications from their Brighton Beach operation. Nick's face remained perfectly still as he scrolled through whatever was on the screen, but I saw his jaw tighten. And Sienna? Singing like a canary now that she knows we have her on tape. Marco glanced at me, then back to Nick. $2 million payout. Half up front, half on confirmation. Kovac promised her protection in his organization once you were dead. New identity, new life in Belgrade. $2 million. My entire existence, rent, bills, Mira's school expenses, could have been solved with a fraction of that amount. and Sienna had thrown it away to murder the man who'd given her everything. Where is she now? Nick asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Secure location. Waiting for your orders. Nick nodded once, dismissing him. Marco disappeared back into the elevator, leaving us alone again. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. $2 million, I said. That's what your life is worth to them? That's what my territory is worth. He set the tablet down and finally looked at me. The Serbian Syndicate has been trying to move into my operations for 2 years. Shipping routes, gambling, protection rackets. I've blocked them at every turn. Killing me opens the door. 2 million is a bargain compared to what they'd gain. And Sienna I couldn't finish the sentence. The casual cruelty of it was staggering. Sienna was always transactional. Nick poured himself another whiskey, didn't offer me one. I knew that going in. What I didn't know was how badly I'd miscalculated her ambition. That's on me. The elevator chimed. My entire body tensed, but it was just another one of Nick's men, Victor, I assumed, with a folder in hand. The sisters in the car. 5 minutes out. He handed Nick the folder. And this is everything we pulled on the Rivas family. Thought you'd want it before she arrives. My stomach dropped. You investigated us? Of course I did. Nick opened the folder, scanning pages I couldn't see. Elena Rivas, 26. Mother deceased, cancer 2 years ago. Father unknown. You've worked 3 jobs to keep your sister in school and on track for Juilliard. Currently $14,000 in debt, mostly medical bills. He looked up. You're barely surviving, Elena. Which makes what you did tonight even more remarkable. You had everything to lose and nothing to gain. I told you. I couldn't just let it happen. And now you can't just walk away. He closed the folder and set it aside. The Serbian Syndicate doesn't forgive witnesses. They'll come for you. Not immediately, they'll wait until the heat dies down, until you think you're safe. Maybe a week, maybe a month. But they'll come. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the expensive heating system. What are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice to make. Nick moved closer, his presence overwhelming even in the massive space. You can accept my protection. Stay here under my security until I neutralize the threat. Dragan Kovac and his organization will be dealt with, and when it's done, you and your sister can return to your lives. And the alternative? His eyes held mine. I give you $20,000 cash, enough to disappear. You and Mira get new identities, relocate somewhere far from New York. Maybe you make it, maybe you don't. But you're on your own. No protection, no resources, no backup if they find you. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. No, he said quietly. An ultimatum is what Dragan gave me tonight. Die or die. This is a choice. Not a fair one, but it's still yours to make. I thought about Mira's scholarship, her future that I'd sacrificed everything to secure. Thought about disappearing, always looking over our shoulders, wondering if every stranger was an assassin. Thought about my mother in her hospital bed, making me promise to keep Mira safe no matter what. How long? I asked. Until the threat is neutralized? Weeks. Maybe months. Depends on how quickly I can leverage what I need against Kovac. The elevator chimed again. Through the glass walls, I could see Victor escorting a terrified, furious Mira across the marble foyer. My sister's eyes found mine, and the betrayal in them nearly broke me. I need to know now, Elena, Nick said. Are you in or are you out? I watched Mira approach, her Juilliard acceptance letter probably still sitting on our kitchen table back in Brooklyn. Her whole life ahead of her. Her whole future depending on me making the right choice. I'd already made it the moment I wrote that note. We're in, I said. Nick nodded once, like he'd expected nothing less. Then welcome to your new life. The elevator doors opened and Mira stepped into the cage I'd just agreed to lock us both inside. What the hell is going on? Mira's voice cut through the penthouse like a knife. She stood in the foyer, flanked by Victor, her backpack still slung over one shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled into the messy bun she always wore for practice, and she was still in her school clothes. Jeans and the Juilliard hoodie I'd saved 3 months to buy her. Mira, I started, moving toward her. Don't. She held up a hand, stopping me cold. These men showed up at our apartment with guns, Elena. Guns. They said you were in danger and I had to come with them immediately. So I'm asking you one more time, what the hell is going on? Nick stepped forward before I could answer. Your sister saved my life tonight. In doing so, she made herself a target for a very dangerous organization. They will use you to get to her. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Mira's eyes darted between us, her musician's brain processing information at lightning speed. Who are you? Nick Giordano. Her face paled. Even Mira, who spent most of her time in practice rooms and concert halls, knew that name. Yes. His tone was matter-of-fact, almost bored. And now your sister has made herself invaluable to me, which means keeping both of you alive is in my best interest. So you'll stay here under my protection until the threat is neutralized. Like hell I will. I have school. I have rehearsals. My scholarship audition is in 3 weeks. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again. And again. I pulled it out with shaking hands. 3 texts from an unknown number. The first was a photo. Mira's school, the entrance she walked through every morning. The second was closer. The practice room window, 3rd floor, where she spent her lunch hours on the piano. The third message was just text. Pretty sister. Shame about the talented hands. The phone slipped from my grip. Nick caught it before it hit the marble floor, his expression darkening as he read the screen. Victor, he said quietly. Get this number to tech. I want a location trace and full surveillance on the school. Now. Wait. Mira's voice had lost its edge. Were those photos of my school? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. They'd already found her. Less than 2 hours since the shooting, and they'd already tracked down my baby sister, photographed her school, identified the one thing that mattered most to her in the world. Her hands. Nick handed me back the phone, then turned to Mira with something almost like gentleness. This is what we're dealing with. The Serbian Syndicate doesn't make empty threats. They've already demonstrated they know where you go to school, which room you practice in. If we hadn't brought you here tonight, you would have walked into that building tomorrow morning and never walked out. Mira's face had gone white. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment understanding crashed over her. What did you do, Elena? I heard someone planning to kill him, I said, my voice breaking. I couldn't just, I had to warn him. I had to. So you dragged us into a mob war? Her voice rose. Do you have any idea what you've done? Juilliard, my scholarship, my entire future. Your future doesn't matter if you're dead. The words came out harsher than I intended. I'm sorry, Mira. I'm so sorry. But I made a choice and now we have to live with it. She stared at me for a long moment and I watched something shift in her expression. My little sister, who I'd raised since she was 14, who I'd protected from every hardship I could, was suddenly looking at me like a stranger. You should have let me die with you then, she said quietly. At least I would have had 3 more weeks of normal life. Miss Rivas, Nick interjected. I understand your anger. But right now, anger is a luxury you can't afford. These people will torture you for information about your sister, and when they're done, they'll kill you in a way designed to send me a message. Your hands won't just be ruined. They'll be delivered to your sister in a box. Mira flinched. Good. She needed to understand what we were dealing with. How long? She asked, her voice steadier now. How long do we have to stay here? Until I've eliminated the threat. Weeks, possibly longer. She was quiet for a moment, processing. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold and controlled. I need my sheet music. My practice journals. And access to a piano. Already arranged, Nick said. There's a Steinway Grand on the 3rd floor. Soundproofed room, same model as the one at your school. Despite everything, Mira looked surprised. You have a Steinway Grand? My mother played. Something flickered across his face, there and gone. The room is yours. Mira shouldered her backpack and headed for the stairs without another word to me. I watched her go, my heart shattering with each step. She'll forgive you, Nick said quietly. Eventually. Will she? I looked down at my phone at the photo of her school, the threat against her hands. I'm not sure I deserve it. I couldn't sleep. Mira had locked herself in the soundproofed music room, and even through the reinforced walls, I could hear the faint echo of Chopin, angry, precise, accusatory. She was playing the Fantasy Impromptu, the piece that had gotten her into Juilliard's pre-college program. She always played it when she was furious with me. At 2 a.m. I gave up pretending and wandered downstairs, barefoot on cold marble. The penthouse was dark except for a single light in the living room. Nick sat in one of the leather chairs facing the floor-to-ceiling windows, a bottle of Macallan on the side table beside him. Not the 25-year he'd been drinking at the Onyx. This looked older, more expensive. The kind of bottle you opened when you were trying to drown something that wouldn't die. Can't sleep either? I asked quietly. He didn't turn, just raised his glass in acknowledgement. Your sister plays beautifully. Even angry. She's been playing since she was 6. It's the only language she trusts. I moved closer, hovering at the edge of the seating area. You said your mother played? Past tense. He took a long drink. She died when I was 17. Cancer like yours. She made me promise to keep the piano, to never sell it. Said music was the only thing that kept us human in a world like this. I settled into the chair across from him, drawing my knees up. The city glittered below us, oblivious to the violence that had shattered my life hours ago. Did you keep the promise? I keep all my promises. His voice was rough around the edges, the whiskey or exhaustion stripping away the controlled facade he'd maintained all night. It's the people around me who seem to struggle with loyalty. There was the wound. Not the assassination attempt itself, but what it represented. Sienna, I said. 3 years. He refilled his glass, the amber liquid catching the light. 3 years of dinners, trips, conversations. I knew what she was. Ambitious, calculating, transactional. I thought I'd accounted for all of it. Thought I'd made the cost of betrayal too high, the reward of loyalty too comfortable. He laughed, a bitter sound. Turns out I just got lazy. Complacent. Started seeing routine as loyalty. You couldn't have known. I should have. He finally turned to look at me, and his eyes were clearer than they should have been for someone working through that much whiskey. That's my job, Elena. Reading people, anticipating threats, staying 3 moves ahead. And I missed it. Not just missed it, I was blind to it. Do you know how many people could have died tonight because I mistook familiarity for trust? The vulnerability in his voice startled me. This wasn't the controlled, dangerous man who dragged me into his car. This was someone raw, angry at himself, stripped down to the truth that wealth and power couldn't protect you from human weakness. But you didn't die, I said. Because a bartender I'd never properly looked at noticed what I couldn't see. He set down his glass and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You saw it in 15 minutes, Elena. 15 minutes in a bathroom while I sat there for 3 hours, completely oblivious. You know what that tells me? I shook my head. That I need you. The admission seemed to cost him. Your observational skills, your instinct, whatever it is that made you connect those dots when everyone else missed them. I need that. Especially now. I'm just a bartender. I read people because I have to, because that's how women like me stay safe. Exactly. He stood, moving to the window. The city lights reflected in the glass, turning him into a shadow. You see threats because you've had to survive them your whole life. I see patterns, power plays, organizational structures. But I missed the human element. The personal betrayal. He turned back to me. We need to find Sienna. Tonight. Before Dragan realizes his hit failed and moves her somewhere I can't reach. It's 2 a.m. Which is exactly when people think they're safe. He was already pulling out his phone. My sources say she's still in the city, likely at the Carlisle. Dragan's people use it as a neutral ground. She'll have security, but she won't be expecting me to move this fast. Why are you telling me this? Because you're coming with me. His tone left no room for argument. If there's anyone else in my organization playing both sides, I need someone who can spot them. Someone who sees what I'm too close to see. I don't know anything about your world. You knew enough to save my life. He was texting rapidly, organizing something. Get dressed. Wear black. We leave in 10 minutes. Nick. 10 minutes, Elena. He met my eyes and there was something almost desperate beneath the command. Please. That last word, small, quiet, unexpected, was what made me stand up and head for the stairs. The Carlisle Hotel at 2:47 a.m. looked like money trying to sleep. Quiet, elegant, the kind of place where scandals happened behind closed doors and the staff was paid enough to forget everything they saw. Marco pulled the Mercedes up to a side entrance, and Nick adjusted his cuffs like we were arriving for a business meeting instead of a confrontation with the woman who'd tried to have him killed. Stay close, he said as we stepped into the lobby. Don't speak unless I ask you to. And if things go bad, Marco will get you out. How reassuring. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. You wanted to come. We took the elevator to the 8th floor, Marco and 2 other men I hadn't been introduced to flanking us. The hallway was empty, cream-colored walls and Art Deco sconces casting soft shadows. Nick stopped at room 807 and knocked once, firm and authoritative. The door opened. A man I didn't recognize, thick neck, dead eyes, Serbian accent. Mr. Giordano. We weren't expecting you. I'm full of surprises tonight. Nick pushed past him without waiting for permission and I followed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The suite was massive, all velvet and mahogany, with a view of Central Park that probably cost more per night than my monthly rent. Sienna sat on the sofa in a silk robe, her perfect hair slightly mussed, mascara smudged. Across from her sat a man in an expensive suit, mid-50s, silver hair, sharp cheekbones. Even sitting down, he radiated the kind of danger that made my survival instincts scream. Dragan Kovac. Nick. Sienna's voice was small, broken. I can explain. Save it. Nick's voice was ice. I'm not here for your explanations. I'm here for his. Dragan smiled, leaning back in his chair with the ease of someone who'd orchestrated 1,000 betrayals and survived them all. Mr. Giordano. I heard you had an unfortunate evening. Please sit. Let's discuss this like civilized men. I'm not interested in being civilized with someone who put a bullet through my restaurant. A misunderstanding. Dragan's eyes flicked to me, assessing. And who is this? Your new associate? She's quite young. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. Not sexual, worse. Clinical. Like he was already calculating how to use me against Nick. She's the reason you failed, Nick said flatly. And the reason you're going to call off whatever secondary plan you have running right now. Dragan's smile widened. I don't know what you're talking about. I watched him as he spoke, the way his right hand rested on the arm of the chair, fingers drumming a slow rhythm. The way his eyes kept darting to the bedroom door behind him. The way he sat forward just slightly, weight on the balls of his feet like he was ready to move. He has someone in the bedroom, I said quietly. And he's stalling. Nick's eyes cut to me for half a second. You sure? His body language. He keeps looking at the door. And his fingers, I gestured to the drumming pattern. That's not nervous energy. That's a signal. Dragan's smile vanished. The bartender has opinions. Marco, Nick said calmly. Clear the bedroom. Everything happened fast. Marco moved toward the door. Dragan lunged from his chair and suddenly there were guns everywhere. The thick-necked guard from the entrance reached for his weapon, but Nick's other man already had his own pressed against the guard's temple. "Don't," Nick said quietly. The bedroom door burst open and Marco emerged dragging another man in tactical gear, already disarmed. Sniper rifle on the balcony. Was waiting for the signal. My stomach dropped. They'd been planning to kill Nick the moment he sat down. The whole conversation was just set up for another assassination. Nick's expression didn't change, but I felt the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. "You get one chance to live through tonight, Dragan. Call off every contract you have on me and mine. Every asset, every operative, every plan. Do it now or Marco puts that rifle to better use." Dragan's face had gone pale. He looked at me then back to Nick. "You trust a bartender's instincts over your own intelligence?" "I trust someone who saved my life over someone who tried to end it." Nick pulled out his phone and set it on the table between them. "Make the calls. All of them. And pray I believe you when you're done." For a long moment nobody moved. Then Dragan reached for his phone with shaking hands. 2 hours later we were back in the Mercedes. Dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Nick had been silent since we left the Carlisle, his jaw tight with tension that hadn't eased even after Dragan made every call he'd demanded. "There's going to be an FBI investigation," he said finally. "Agent Torres. He's been trying to build a case against me for 3 years. Tonight gave him everything he needed. Witnesses, crime scene, federal interest. He'll come for you first." "What do I tell him?" "The truth. Mostly." He looked at me. "You're a bartender who overheard a threat and warned a customer. You don't know anything about my business, my organization, or my operations. You were trying to prevent a murder. That's it. And if he doesn't believe me, then you call my lawyer." He handed me a business card. "But Elena, tonight proved something. You see things I miss. And I'm going to need that again." I pocketed the card, watching the sunrise paint the city gold. Somehow I'd gone from invisible to invaluable in less than 12 hours. I wasn't sure which was more dangerous. Agent Torres arrived at the penthouse 3 days after the shooting. Nick's lawyer, a woman named Christine Zhao who looked like she ate federal prosecutors for breakfast, met him in the ground floor conference room while I sat on the opposite side of the table, trying not to look as terrified as I felt. "Miss Rivas," Torres said, his voice carrying that particular brand of false friendliness that law enforcement perfected. "I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me." "My client is happy to cooperate," Christine said smoothly. "Within reason." Torres opened a folder, spreading crime scene photos across the table. Shattered glass. Blood on marble. The corner booth where I'd served Nick drinks for 8 months, now cordoned off with yellow tape. "Walk me through the evening. Everything you remember." I told him the truth. Most of it. The bathroom, the phone call, the note. He listened, taking notes, his expression neutral. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "That's a remarkable story, Miss Rivas. Remarkably convenient, actually." "Excuse me." A bartender overhears a murder plot, warns a known organized crime figure, saves his life, and then disappears with him before police can take her statement. He tapped his pen against the folder. "You can see how that might look suspicious." "My client acted to prevent a murder," Christine interjected. "She's a civilian who found herself in an impossible situation. Your client is living in Nick Giordano's penthouse. Under his protection. Eating his food, sleeping in his guest room." Torres's eyes found mine. "You're not a civilian anymore, Miss Rivas. You're a witness. And witnesses have choices to make." My mouth went dry. "What kind of choices?" "Cooperate fully with our investigation. Testify about what you saw, what you heard, everything you know about Giordano's organization. We can offer you witness protection, relocation for you and your sister. New identities, new lives. You'd be safe. From everyone except the Serbian Syndicate," Christine said coldly. Witness protection doesn't stop a bullet from an organization with international reach. Torres ignored her. Or you can stay where you are. Protect Giordano, become part of his world. But understand, if you make that choice you become a target for this investigation. We won't stop looking at you, Miss Rivas. And when we finally bring down Giordano's operation, you'll go down with him. The room fell silent. I looked at the crime scene photos, at the shattered window that could have been Nick's head, at the blood that could have been mine. Then I thought about Mira upstairs, practicing Rachmaninoff in a soundproofed room worth more than our entire apartment building. Can I have a moment alone with my lawyer? I asked. Torres stood, gathering his files. You have 24 hours to decide, Miss Rivas. After that, the offer expires. He paused at the door. Choose wisely. Your sister's future depends on it. When he was gone, Christine turned to me. Nick told me you'd probably cooperate, that you'd see the FBI as the safer option. What do you think I should do? I think your old life ended the moment you wrote that note. She closed her folder, her expression unreadable. The question is whether you're brave enough to build a new one. I found Nick in his office, staring at multiple monitors showing security feeds, news reports, surveillance footage. He didn't look up when I entered. Torres made his pitch, I said. And he offered witness protection. New identities for me and Mira. A fresh start. Nick's jaw tightened, but he still didn't look at me. That's a good offer. You should take it. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. This is your life, Elena. Your sister's life. I won't hold you hostage to my war. I moved closer, studying his profile in the glow of the monitors. Except we're already hostages. The moment I handed you that note, we became part of this. Leaving doesn't change that. The Serbians will still hunt us. The FBI will still pressure me. Running just means doing it alone. He finally turned to face me. You don't know what you're committing to. Then teach me. I held his gaze. You said you needed my instincts. My observational skills. Use them. Let me be part of this instead of just a liability you're protecting. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. If you stay, there's no going back. I know. He studied me for another long moment, then pulled up a new screen. Thermal imaging, 3 figures in a warehouse. Dragan Kovac. He thinks he's safe in Brighton Beach, thinks the calls he made at the Carlisle bought him time. Nick's voice went cold. He's wrong. When? Tonight. I need leverage to force him to permanently call off all contracts on you and Mira. Not just verbal agreements, documented proof, recorded confessions, enough to ensure he can't touch either of you without destroying himself. He looked at me. It won't be clean. I don't need clean. I need safe. Then call Torres. Tell him you're declining his offer. And Elena. He waited until I met his eyes. Thank you. For choosing to stay. I nodded and left to make the call that would seal my fate. 4 hours later, Nick sent me a video. Dragan Kovac in a chair, blood on his face, speaking into a camera. All contracts on Elena Rivas and Mira Rivas are permanently terminated. Any operative who touches them answers to me personally. Below the video, Nick had texted, "You and your sister are safe now. Get some sleep." I stared at the message, at the proof that I'd traded one kind of danger for another, one kind of cage for a different one. But Mira was safe. That was all that mattered. I deleted Torres's number from my phone and went upstairs to bed. 2 weeks after Dragan's confession hit the FBI's desk, Mira finally spoke to me at breakfast. Not much, just pass the coffee, but it was something. She'd been practicing 8 hours a day, channeling her anger into Prokofiev and Liszt, transforming Nick's penthouse into her personal concert hall. Her scholarship audition was in 4 days, and Nick had arranged for the Juilliard panel to come here rather than risk moving her. I was starting to think we might actually survive this. Then Christine called. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Sienna's selling her story. New York Post full exclusive. My life as a Mafia mistress. How I survived Nick Giordano. Goes to print in 6 hours unless we stop it. My stomach dropped. Can we stop it? Nick's handling it. But you should probably get down here. I found him in his office with Marco and 2 lawyers I didn't recognize, all crowded around a laptop showing a draft article. The headline alone was devastating. Complete with photos, intimate details, and just enough truth mixed with lies to be legally defensible and personally destructive. How bad? I asked. Bad enough. Nick's voice was controlled, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. She's painting herself as a victim, me as a monster. Claims I forced her into the relationship, that she orchestrated the hit in self-defense. That's insane. That's revenge. He closed the laptop. Marco, execute option 3. Marco nodded and left. I waited until we were alone before asking, what's option 3? Sienna has a trust fund from her father. 30 million, untouchable as long as she stays out of legal trouble. Marco just delivered evidence to her trustees showing she committed wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. He leaned back in his chair. She pulls the article or she loses everything. Will she pull it? She already did. The Post killed the story 10 minutes ago. I should have felt relief. Instead I felt exhausted. How long does this go on? The threats, the countermoves, the constant chess game. That depends. Nick studied me carefully. On what you want this to be. What I want. I laughed, but it came out bitter. I want my sister to stop looking at me like I ruined her life. I want to sleep without checking the security feeds. I stopped, the truth catching in my throat. What? His voice was softer now. What do you want, Elena? I want to know what we are. The words came out rushed, desperate. Am I your debt? Your witness? Your employee? Because I can't keep living in this limbo where I'm protected but powerless, where you make all the decisions and I just follow along. He stood, moving around the desk toward me. What do you want to be? I'm not your debt or your property. I forced myself to hold his gaze. We're partners or we're nothing. The silence stretched between us, heavy with implications. Then Nick did something I'd never seen him do. He smiled. Not the cold, calculated expression he used in meetings, but something real and almost vulnerable. Partners, he repeated. You realize what you're asking for? Full transparency, equal say in decisions, shared risk. Yes. You'll see things you can't unsee. Know things that will change you. I'm already changed. I stepped closer. That happened the moment I wrote that note. The question is whether you trust me enough to let me in completely. I trusted you the night you saved my life. His hand came up, fingers gentle against my jaw. I've been in love with you since you lunged in front of that bullet. The confession hit me like a physical force. Nick. I know it's insane. I know the timing is impossible. But you're the only person I'd risk everything to protect. The only person who sees me clearly and stays anyway. His thumb traced my cheekbone. So yes, Elena. Partners. On your terms. I kissed him before I could think better of it, before logic could intervene and remind me of all the reasons this was dangerous and complicated and probably doomed. His arms came around me, solid and certain, and for the first time in 2 weeks I felt like I could breathe. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Your sister is going to kill me. Probably. I smiled despite everything. But she'll get over it. Eventually. That confident? No. I tangled my fingers with his. But I'm betting on us anyway. From upstairs, Mira's piano drifted down. Debussy's Clair de Lune, soft and contemplative. Not angry anymore. Maybe not forgiving yet, but getting closer. Nick pulled me closer and I let him. Let myself believe that sometimes the most dangerous choice could also be the right one. We'd figure out the rest as we went. Together.